Guys, welcome back to my channel, Simply Michelle, and happy to have you. I have been reading the story called A Chance at Love, written by Moi, of course. And so without itching, as we say, we will get right into the story. Chapter 9, Amara's Truth. The river's cool hush lingered into Greg's ears long after they have left it. He couldn't stop thinking about the way Amara's words have cut through the ear. Wanting means losing. There was much she hadn't said, but something in her tone told him the time would come when she would. That time arrived sooner than expected. Sat beneath a wide almond tree late in the afternoon, watching a group of children skipping stones across the river's surface. Amara rested her chin on her knees, her voice drifting low. "You should know something about me, Greg. Something I don't usually share." Greg turned, waiting, but careful not to press. She took a long breath, her eyes following the ripples of the water. "I didn't end up here by accident. I am not just a waitress working at Chirilla Inn. I went to Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. Graduated with honors. I studied painting, but dancing was my love. For a while, I thought my life would have been filled with the stages, exhibitions, and color." A wistful smile flickered across her face, and in some ways it was. Greg's brow lifted slightly. He hadn't expected this. "You are an artist?" he asked. "An artist, yes. And a dancer, of course. But also, I'm a disappointment." Her voice sharpened, and bitterness sliding in. "My parents wanted me to become a nurse. Something respectable, steady. I was supposed to fit into their little plan, their box. But I didn't. And when I chose art, they said I was wasting my time." Greg leaned closer, his voice gentle. "So you chose yourself?" "Yes," she said firmly, though her eyes glistened. "I chose myself, but the cost, it was higher than I thought." She's silent for a moment, her hands tightening around her knees. When she spoke again, her voice dropped lower, edged with memory. "At Edna, I met someone. A young man from money, prestige, the kind of family my parents worship. He made me believe in forever. He spoke of courtship, he even hinted at marriage. I thought..." Her voice cracked. She paused, swallowed, then pressed on. "I thought I found love." Greg's chest tightened, and her lips pressed into a thin line. "And when I wasn't ready to give him what he wanted, sex, he turned to someone else." "Can you believe it?" she asked rhetorically. "Not just anyone, my best friend." Her breath shook. "They betrayed me together. And because His family carried weight and mine carried expectations. My parents blamed me, said I pushed him away, said I had ruined my chance at a good life. Greg felt heat rise in his chest, anger, not at her, but for her. That wasn't your fault, Amora. Surely you must know that, said Greg. She gave a bitter laugh. Tell that to my parents. They still think I threw away my best chance. They don't see that he wasn't a man worth keeping. Only my grandmother. She stood by me. She always has me. She lives in Mandeville, of course, goes back and forth abroad, part of the diaspora. She's wealthy, yes. Her mansion, her comforts, but none of that mattered to her. She saw me. She told me never to let anyone force me into what I didn't want, to live my truth. Her voice softened at the mention of her grandmother, her eyes warming. She's a joy of my heart, the only one who believed in me when I felt like nothing. Greg studied her, seeing for the first time the threads of her unorthodox fire, her defiance, her independence, her refusal to bend. It wasn't just rebellion, it was survival. He wanted to tell her then about Boston, about the hospital corridors, the expectation of his family, the scandal that have pushed him to leave. But the words clung to his throat unspoken, his truth still too raw, too dangerous. Instead, he reached out and touched her hand gently. Amora, what they did to you, your parents, that man, it doesn't defy you. You are more than that. Her eyes searched his, wide and wet. For a moment, Greg thought she might break, but instead, she squeezed his hand, her voice trembling. Maybe, but it's why I run, Greg. Why I push people away before they can do it to me. It's easier to be the one that leaves first, she echoed. Greg swallowed hard because her words mirror his own story much too closely. He tightened his grip on her hand, wishing he could tell her everything, wishing he could match her vulnerability. But not yet, he thought. So he stayed silent, letting his touch speak where his voice would not. As the sun dipped low, painting the river in amber and shadows, Amora leaned her head lightly against his shoulders. For the first time, she had given him a piece of her truth. And for the first time, Greg felt the weight of his own silence pressing heavier than ever. Chapter 10. The Silence Between Us. The morning after their riverside confession, Negril woke to its usual rhythm, wave flowing to the shore, the sea breeze carrying the faint tang of salt and hibiscus. But for Greg, the morning felt heavier than the Caribbean sun pressing through the shutters of his hotel room. He laid on his bed at Chirella Inn, staring at the ceiling. He thought of Amara, her voice breaking as she told him about the man who betrayed her, her parents, cold disappointment, her grandmother's unwavering love. She had bared her heart to him. She trusted him with her wounds. And what had he given her in return? Nothing. Only silence, only half truth. He turned onto his side, restless. But in Boston, he had been trained to diagnose, to see patterns in symptoms and know what they mean. But here, in matters of the heart, he felt blind. He wanted to tell her about the collapse of his engagement, the scandal at the hospital, the suffocating expectation of his family, but the words stuck like stone in his chest. He told himself it was because it was too soon, that it wasn't the right time, that he needed to be sure of her before he unwrapped the mess of his past. But deep down, he knew it was fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of rejection. Fear that she would look at him definitely once and she would know the truth. A knock at the door startled him. Greg! Greg? Amaro's voice filtered in, light but attentive. He sat up quickly, smoothing the sheets as if that would erase his unease. Come on in, he shouted. She stepped inside carrying a tray with 2 steaming cups and coffee, strong. You look like you need it. Her smile was easy, and her eyes reached his face as she set the tray down and the small table by the window. Greg rose to join her, their knees brushing as they sat across from each other. Thanks, he said, wrapping his hands around the mug, though he barely tasted the first sip. For a while, they sipped in silence, watching the sun spill across the hotel gardens. It was Amara who broke it, the silence. You are quiet today. Why are you so quiet? She said softly. Greg forced a smile. Just tired. Didn't sleep much? She asked. She tilted her head, studying him. That's not it. Her directness startled him. What do you mean? You hold yourself back, she said plainly. Though her tone was not unkind, it kind of sting. Last night, I told you things I don't usually tell anyone. I felt lighter, but you? Her eyes lingered on him, searching. You keep your walls up, Greg. Greg's throat tightened. He set the mug down, staring at the swirl of steam. Amara, it's not like that. It's not that simple, he said. Maybe not, she admitted, but you don't have to be perfect with me. You don't have to carry it all alone. Her words dug under his skin, cutting closer to the truth than he wanted. He looked up at her, rarely looked. The sincerity in her eyes, the strength laced with vulnerability. She had given him her story, raw, not unvarnished. And here he sat, a man with secrets he was too cowardly to share. But he couldn't do it, not yet. Instead, he reached across the table, covering her hand with his. I'm not ready, he said, finally, voice low. Her hand twitched beneath his, but she didn't pull away. Then don't be, she replied gently. But don't shut me out either. I can feel when you do, Greg. Greg nodded, guilt burning in his chest. Later that afternoon, They walk along the hotel gardens, Amara pointing out small details Greg may have missed, the way the almond tree leaves turned red before falling, the stone path widening toward the beach. So often she glanced at him as if checking whether he was still there. And he was, with her, but not fully. A part of him stood always just outside, like a man watching his own life through a glass. At one point, she stopped, turning to him with arms crossed. Greg, do you even want to be here with me? She asked, annoyed. The question hit him like a slap. Of course I do, he said quickly. Amara, he stuttered. Then why do you look like you're always somewhere else? Her voice trembled with frustration, but beneath it was hurt. I am not asking for anything, Greg. I just want to know you are here with me, not still back in Boston, or wherever it is you keep running to in your head, she exclaimed, annoyed. He opened his mouth, but the words tangled. He wanted to tell her, I left Boston because of the scandal, because of the broken engagement, because I didn't know who I was anymore. But the shame was heavy, choking even. Instead, he whispered, I don't want to lose this. Something softened in her eyes, though she shook her head. Then you'll have to let me in, eventually, otherwise, she trailed off, not finishing the thought. She didn't need to. This warning hung in the air between them like a storm cloud. That night, back in his room, Greg paced the floor. Her words replayed again and again. Don't shut me out, otherwise. He knew she was right. Every hour he stayed silent was another crack in the fragile bridge forming between them. Amora had trusted him with her scars. Now she was waiting patiently, but not forever, for him to do the same. Greg paused by the window, staring at the moonlit waves, his heart pulled to two directions, one toward safety, silence, and control, the other toward her, raw and uncertain, but real. And for the first time since leaving Boston, Greg admitted the truth to himself. If he hadn't taken the risk of telling her everything, he might lose the only chance at love that had ever felt worth it. But he wasn't ready. Not tonight. He sank onto the bed, head in his hands. Tomorrow, maybe, tomorrow he would find the courage. For now, the silence remained, and so did the tension, unspoken but undeniable, treading between them like the tide pulling inexorably toward the shore.